Good morning and afternoon, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Leading with Empathy. My name is Max Smith. I'm the Director of Communications with 501c Services. Many of you all on the call today already work with us, and some of you are brand new to us, so welcome. Just a little bit about us real quick. 501c Services is one of those wonderful organizations that offers unemployment outsourcing to nonprofits. We have a couple of great programs. One is 501c Agencies Trust for unemployment reimbursing employers, and we also have a standalone HR program called 501c HR Services that provides HR consulting to nonprofits. And like I said, some of you are already working with us, and we thank you for being here with us. Really quick, some housekeeping to get out of the way before I turn it over to Damian and Jules. They're going to really be using that question box that you have today. They've already, before you arrived, they already gave you homework to do to tell them a little bit about yourself. And you'll see that a lot today. So please use that heartily and interact with our speakers so they can interact with you. And also, if you have any real questions, that we will be monitoring that as well and trying to address those as we go and then at the end. Many of you are here today for SHRM credit. You know the deal with that. Following the program, a survey will pop up and you just need to complete that for us so that we can prove that you are here, and we will send you your SHRM credit probably first thing tomorrow morning. If you have to run right after we're done, don't worry, we'll send you that survey via email a little bit later today. Fill it out for me and I will get you that credit so that you can keep your certification up. The materials are also available in the handout section already, so Damian's slides are already here, and we will also provide those to you via email later today as well. So that takes care of your slides, that takes care of your credits, that takes care of your questions. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Damian and Jules for today's program. Hey guys.
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm just going to say hello. I'm Jules Gilbertson. I'm the Senior HR Projects Manager here at 501c Services, and I am delighted to be here today for the next hour with you, and very thrilled to pass this over to Damian. This is going to be a delight.
Thanks, Jules. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm very excited to be here with you today to share a little bit of my skills on leading with empathy. I am the Chief Consultant for Maldonado and Associates. We're a bilingual, multicultural consulting team that really specializes in working with smaller nonprofits, county governments, and youth-serving organizations. So I have approximately 20 years of management experience, have managed a variety of teams in healthcare, law enforcement, as well as after-school programs, expanded learning programs. And I, do a lot of these leadership type trainings. That's kind of my forte, and I really enjoy doing them. So I hope you enjoy it too. Alrighty, so let's jump on in and leading with empathy. We're going to talk about mindful ways, intentional ways to shift culture. And so, a lot of you I know Simon Sinek. One of his quotes was, when we think about things like trust, things like loyalty, things like cooperation, we need to understand that all of those are actual feelings. They're not just instructions or orders we can give as leaders, although that would be nice, right? But that's not the case. So we really need to be intentional about how we look at leading with empathy and leading our teams. So very quickly,
Is it okay? I'm sorry, Damian. I want to share briefly with you who's on the call today. So
yes, please, that would be great.
Yeah, this is wonderful. We have a lot of different layers of and levels of leadership experience and knowledge here. So wonderful audience. We have from EDs and CEOs to directors, program directors, coordinators. We have people with 10, 20, even 30 years of experience. So thank you so much for being here today. Yeah, all kinds of valuable knowledge and experience here on this training session today. And so we really appreciate you being here and looking forward to your input.
Excellent. Well, yes, thank you. I'm so excited to see a variety of levels of leadership in the room, which is great. And this training really is applicable to anyone who leads another person. So if you're in a leadership position and are a direct supervisor of someone, then absolutely, you're in the right place. And no matter how many years of experience we have, you know, it's always great to refresh our skill set, kind of learn new in different ways. And as we know, we pick up little new tidbits of information as we continue to go through these learning opportunities. So my goal is that you walk away with a little tidbit of knowledge that you can apply actually right away.
Absolutely. So, we have HR professionals on the call too. And one question there, you're right that all you're seeing is a question box. So if we say chat box or any of the slides say that, just know that you can write to us in the question box and I will be paying attention to that.
Thanks, Julie. All right. So as I was jumping in, just to say, you know, I'd like to remind ourselves just how do we best learn, right? Adults, just like kids, right, need to be focused whenever we want to walk away with and learn, pick up some new knowledge. So just a reminder, unplug, put your phones on vibrate if that's a thing you can do, close out any other windows, and really engage with the conversations today. You know, in the question box, we'll be asking questions to really tailor the session as we're going. And then lastly, just reflect on how you can apply any of these little nuggets of information, skills back at your workplace so that you can, you know, it helps you be much more effective when you're leading teams. So today we're going to cover just why emotions at work are so important and why they matter. And I know there's been a lot, you know, around emotional intelligence and how important that is. But, you know, we're really honing in on, you know, what does it mean in the workplace? And, you know, what do those touchy-feeling, you know, environments look like, or do we have to go there, right? What is emotional intelligence? And then we'll talk about specific strategies to build workplace culture that you'll also be helping kind of give ideas to each other on that. And then if we have time, just some specific action plans, takeaways that you can do, anything we can help you with as you move forward in trying to implement some of these skills. As Julie mentioned, there is a handout box. The PowerPoints are there. And then an emotions team sheet that you can use if you can print it out. If not, we have the questions on screen for you to follow along the prompts. So very quickly, I'd love to know what are or have been some of your biggest challenges with staff culture. And, you know, when we think about challenges, I really want you to think about the culture of your team, right? It's very easy to pinpoint one person, one issue we've had, but when you've got your team together and you're trying to really move them forward for a specific goal, what are some of the challenges that you've pinpointed in terms of staff culture?
Well, I see there's a little input. Not everyone on the same page. Shifts in culture. Here's some more. Embedded bad behavior, no accountability, and real complacency. The idea that one department works harder than another. Transactional versus transformational. Awesome. Trust, not having enough staff, a more competitive than collaborative culture, consistent communications. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Collective trauma. Ooh, stuck in the old ways of thinking. Hybrid work schedule has disturbed cohesiveness. That's a challenge right there. Increase in emotional reactions. working as a team, lack of empathy. Boy, oh boy. So I'm going to let you go with that. Not enough staff. I'll let you speak to that. And lastly, old school battling new school. Really excellent input. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. All extremely valuable comments that have been mentioned. I think the big one that somebody just mentioned was, the old guard versus the new guard, right? When we're talking about multi-generational workplaces, really a shift in how we think about management, right? A lot of us that have been in leadership for numerous years, right? We're kind of really trained with that military background mentality, right? Which is, we know leadership trainings started back in the military and then eventually led into that kind of control and command, do as I say, right? Just come to work, leave your feelings at the door. And over the years, we've really transitioned to fully and realistically, I would say, understand that it's impossible for us to check our feelings at the door. We are human beings made up of feelings and emotions. And as a result, that comes to us with us to work. And how we interact with each other and what I as a leader do absolutely have an impact on how people feel, which ultimately impact your staff culture. Now, there were some things you mentioned, like staffing challenges, right? Hiring people, getting qualified people. Those kind of things, yes, continue to be challenges. When we're looking at leading with empathy, we're looking at, what kind of culture do we want to create? And so a lot of the comments that were mentioned were right on. It comes down to feelings, how people feel in the workplace, right? Is there trust? Is there commitment, cooperation? Those are all feelings and emotions that people have around how we work together as a team. And the truth is that as leaders, we don't pay enough attention to how our employees should be feeling or are feeling. And we underestimate how central and crucial emotions are to building the right workplace culture. And the truth is, emotions are like viruses, scientifically proven that they're very contagious. And each of us that are in a leadership position, by the sheer nature of being a leader, having a title really puts us in a position to have a tremendous amount of influence over emotions at work and how people feel at work. So if I show up and I'm in a bad mood, and it's clear in my face, it's clear in my posture, staff are instantly going to be angst. There's going to be a higher level of anxiety. They might take that back to the next customer, client, student they have to work with, right? So it all trickles down based on us as leaders. And why is that? Well, we know that how we think about our workplace, how we think about our bosses, what they think about you, really impacts how they feel about the workplace, their teams, ultimately the emotional state of mind they come to work with, and as a result, the behaviors. It will lead to behaviors. And so the key thing to remember here is that ultimately you're either going to deal with the feelings people are having and try to negotiate that, or you're going to be dealing with the behaviors that come as a result of people being disconnected, not trusting each other, not respecting you, not liking you. All of those things actually turn into emotions and behavior in the workplace. So I'd like to highlight or share with you just a very quick 3-minute video from Brene Brown, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Her latest book on Dare to Lead really dives into how critical emotions are in the workplace and highlights some very specific skills, some of which I'll share with you today on how to navigate that. But let's watch this 3-minute clip and then we'll debrief it as see what you pick up from here.
As leaders, we either have to attend to fears and feelings, or we have to spend all of our time managing problematic behaviors. If all we keep doing is managing behaviors without digging underneath and dealing with the fears and feelings that are driving the behaviors, we don't see change. How many of you in here have led somebody ever? How many of you have ever had the same conversation with someone around problematic behaviors 20 times? We're not peeling enough. We're not digging to the, this is how it works. We'll do a boundaries example because those are always really easy. People are scared to set boundaries because they want to be nice. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. A boundary is really simple. It's what's okay and what's not okay. So let's set a boundary. Hey, I need to talk to you about what happened in the meeting. I saw you got pissed off. That's okay. But then you pounded your fist on the table and rolled your eyes. That's not okay. Okay to get pissed, not okay to pound the table and roll your eyes in the meeting. I got it. I'm clear. Great. Happens again. Second time. Hey, I need to talk to you again. Again, you got upset in the meeting. I could tell you're angry. That's okay. Not okay to pound the fist and roll your eyes. Sorry, I got it. Won't happen again. You know what? The privilege of the first time is you get to say it won't happen again. The second time is we're going to sit in here together and figure out what's going on so I can figure out how to support you and we can get underneath that behavior, because there will not be a third conversation about this behavior. No, really, I'm good. I'm good. No pounding. I got it. No. What's going on? Nothing. I don't need a therapist. I get it. I don't know. I get it. And that's good because I'm not a therapist. That works out great for both of us. What's going on in the meeting? I'm sick of the way they treat ops. They never bring ops into any of the big decisions, but when it goes bad, it's always our fault. So every day when things go smooth, they don't even know we work here. But if something falls apart, all the operations people in here are like, this is true universally. Okay, now we have something. So when you don't feel heard, when you feel taken for granted, when you feel like your work doesn't matter, and when you're not brought in soon enough to influence something that you're going to have to clean up later, it feels disrespectful. Yes, this we can work with. So we either attend to fears and feelings and dig underneath, or we just keep managing problematic behaviors.
All right. So I'd love for you to hear from you in the question box. What stood out to you about what you heard? What kind of what aha did you have, if any? What resonated with you? If you could just enter that into the question box from what you heard. And I love Brene Brown. If any of you haven't seen any of her videos, she's great, to the point, doesn't beat around the bush. She has Texas speak, so it's keeps you very engaged.
She's great. Well, I have a little input for you, Damian. So getting to the root of the problem instead of dealing with just the behavior, right? Direct conversations, feeling validated, emotions translate to behavior, giving a heads up about how many chances you're going to let this, how many times you're going to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, what if it was, let's see, what if it was how you were feeling and how can we help you with that, right? Boundaries, really probing for a real answer. Instead of just accepting it won't happen again, let's dive a little deeper, right? And acknowledging that there's actually an issue. Someone said we're not a therapist, which is true. So how do you balance that, Damian?
I feel like I'm a therapist, though, when you're leading others, boy, let me tell you.
I know, it's so true. And I know working in HR, in the nonprofit world in my past career, it's like, that's how it feels at times. That they recognize the emotion, but they still set a boundary. I think that's a really key point.
That is critical, absolutely.
Yeah, very critical. Setting expectations and let's see, we have a few others here. Let's see what else we have. A lot of great input, I have to say. Resolving issues for everyone's benefit, which is true.
Indeed, yes.
And the probing piece is critical, and letting folks know that it's okay to feel, and that's important. And then, acknowledging and dealing with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow, this has been some great feedback. Thank you. I think you're all right on track. Absolutely. I think key here, which we saw, right, is, leadership, as Renee modeled for us, right? Leadership really is not some secret strategy we use with people. It really is a partnership with how we're going to lead others, and we should be transparent. So when somebody highlighted, wow, what stood out was she pretty much said, there will not be a third time. Okay, that is extremely clear. We know where we're, how many chances per se we have. And really digging underneath, under those layers is critically important to really find out, as she said, we either attend to the fears and feelings and spend time there, or we're going to spend time dealing with ineffective and unproductive behavior, writing people up, meeting with HR to deal with these behavior issues. So the choice is ours. We're going to invest time up front or in the back end. And I think that's what's key to this is if we don't attend how people are feeling or their fears, then we're going to be dealing with challenges and behaviors anyway. And so, I think there's research that shows that of most of the leadership problems we have, 90% of what we consider problems are because we as leaders tolerate issues. And we kind of hope they'll go away.
That is so true. So true. One of the other inputs, Damian, that was really great, I thought, said responding quickly. If the feelings have been around for a while and maybe there's a reluctance to either deal with them or for the person to share what's going on. And sometimes, it doesn't get addressed and it doesn't go away, right? So,
absolutely.
And also one more was what happens when the challenges and behaviors sit with the leadership team and not the direct reports? Then what?
Oh gosh, yeah. Good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. That is definitely key.
Yeah, and I think that's the ever lasting challenge, right, of middle management, is that we're dealing with leaders above us and direct reports below us. And I just really like to say that sometimes, those of us in middle management, our job is really sometimes to be that buffer between upper management and the actual teams and culture that we want to create in the organization. Because that is the case. Sometimes our leaders are, depending on, what generation they come from, right? What leadership theories they've kind of been taught or they've studied also impacts how they lead. And so we really sometimes just kind of have to ensure we can hand or deal with what we can control. And whatever little bit we can manage up, then also try to do that as well. Julie, do you have any specific strategies or anything different?
Well, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on that too, your middle management and your peers can also be helpful. I think, in the management team that I used to sit on, we were there for each other and sometimes, had to have those tough conversations with one another because it affected the whole team. Or the middle managers, they would meet and talk about what challenges and what celebrations they had going on. And I think just communication, being so key and knowing that hopefully your culture is across the board. So if there's issues in upper leadership, that also has to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we have to have those honest conversations with our own supervisors, right?
Correct.
As difficult as it might be. So excellent. Thank you so much for that input. I think you really highlighted a lot of those key components that are important to why emotions matter in the workplace. And so if we know that it's critical that we attend to fears and feelings, and you might be thinking, well, what leadership skills are those? What do we need in order to create the cultures we want? And, welcome emotional intelligence, right? Those of you that work with kids or students or in schools also know it as social emotional learning, SEL. It's known as emotional intelligence, EI, in the workplace. And these theories have also been around for over 20 years. They've more recently come into play, especially in the schools. Believe it or not, those of you that are not in school settings or have kids of your own, might be interested to know that these are skills and concepts that are intentionally being taught to students now throughout the nation. And so what are these skills? It's those that you see on your screen there. Self-awareness. How do we recognize one's emotions and value our own strengths and challenges? And we're able to recognize that. How do we make responsible decision-making with ethics in mind, with values, constructing choices, building relationships? How do we work in teams? We're actually, students being taught, right? And the theory or the hope would be that we as adults have these skill sets. And the sad reality of it is that we're aware of them and maybe we're good at one or two of them, but a lot of us need help with kind of that full circle to kind of be complete, right? We still, as adults, and those of you that lead others know that tantrums are still a thing in the workplace, right?
Oh, goodness.
Yes, so things like social awareness, right? Showing and understanding empathy, one of the critical components of what we're just highlighting today, one of those skills. And lastly, self-management, right? How do I manage my emotions and behaviors to achieve my goals, right? How many of us have had staff that say, I really want to promote, I really want to move up, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, based on what I've seen, how you handle yourself, the fact that, get angry, break out in emotions. And it's hard for us to have that conversation with someone. But the fact is that if we don't learn it as students or growing up or at some point, they filter out into the workplace, as a lot of you know. So these are all those skills that kind of make us well-rounded. And as leaders, as I mentioned, each of these we're in a huge position by the sheer nature of our titles to influence each one of these areas in our employees.
True, definitely true.
So, bottom line is it starts with empathy. As a leader, a lot of these more recent leadership gurus, right? Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, all really understand that it starts with empathy and starting with understanding that feelings are at the heart of team culture. So when you think about what culture you have, what culture you want to build, you might be thinking, well, what parameters do I need to send? What reports do I need to have come in? What staff meetings do I want to have? Yes, those are all critically important and they will help, but nothing will help and build that culture you want unless you address the feelings that you want to create in the workplace. And so now I'd like to turn it over to you again, where you have these 10 screens on your card, and basically they're just statements. And I'd like you to look at these and in the question box, write the top 3 that you think are most important to building team culture. The culture that you want to create. So do you want to have a team culture, a team that really feels grateful? They either feel curious, you want them to feel maybe uncomfortable even. That's sometimes not necessarily a negative thing. Maybe you want them to be compassionate. What are those top 3? So only enter 3 in the question box, and Julie will do her best to collect the top 3.
Are you ready? I have plenty for you.
Oh,
I'm gonna try to keep up with them now. So I have
what are
empathetic,
maybe the top 3
humble,
you're seeing?
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot. Curious, which I love. Delighted, curious, compassionate, Grateful, empathetic, curious. There's a lot of duplicates here. Compassionate, humble, empathetic, humble, easygoing, love. We have, oh my gosh, I can't even keep up. There's so many. Love, compassion, curious. It's wonderful. Thank you for your input. It makes it so much more fun. I see a lot of duplicates on empathy. Humble, curious is another. I know that that's just so important, right, Damian, with leadership, because it really helps conversation. Grateful's also on many of the top 3. Empathetic, compassion, delighted, and
So let's go with, let's identify the top 3. The ones I kind of heard and wrote down here are humble, curious, and compassion.
Yes, I would say those are, and there's a lot of empathetic, but yes, those are the ones I'm seeing the most of, and that kind of seem to be resonating with folks.
Thanks, Julie. So for this next activity, if you have a piece of paper to jot down those 3, humble, curious, and compassion, because these next few questions will be based on those 3 emotions that you want to create on your teams. And if you downloaded the emotions team sheet, this is where, this comes into play. You can fill out, it'll be the right side of that team sheet. If not, just jot down the responses to your, to the questions here. So, if we think about this, if we're thinking about work culture, team culture, and if we're saying that the success relies on people feeling humble, curious, and compassionate, what are some things, let's answer question number 2 only. How are you going to know people are feeling this? What are you going to see or hear? So type those into the question box. What would you see or hear if your teams are feeling humbleness, curiosity, compassion?
Oh, I have one person said compassion, good teamwork.
Okay,
A sense
teamwork.
of belonging and commitment, seeing active supervision and teamwork, happy
Excellent.
customers,
Indeed.
acknowledging credit given to the appropriate person, curiosity, looking for ways to progress in the field, better understanding, better teamwork, more collaborative work, group over individual. Active listening, which is great. Sharing vulnerability, which is wonderful. Love, we all got to have that. Compassion, being aware of your fellow employees and how to help and work together. Empathy, right? Curiosity spurs passion. Better understanding of both the staff and the youth. And don't worry if we're going too fast for you. I appreciate your input anyway.
Keep it going. Thank you. You are all right on track. So absolutely, those are a lot of the things you're going to see or hear. And we're working our way down, but it starts with that, right? Like, how do you define team culture? So we're really trying to help you as leaders start to identify this in people's behavior and how you see them interacting with each other, what kind of comments you're hearing. So awesome. Question number 3, our people won't feel this if I do what? Uh-oh, now we're targeting you specifically. What kind of things do you as leaders do that get in the way of people feeling humble, curiosity, and compassion? Deep question here. What kind of things do we...
Oh, so sorry.
Nope, just reiterating it. What kind of things do we as leaders, either intentionally or unintentionally, do that don't help people feel this way?
Well, I appreciate everyone's vulnerability. This is wonderful. I have people that are saying them, maybe locked up in their office, don't listen to concerns, micromanage. not being an active listener, which as we know is so important, dominating the conversations and maybe not checking in avoiding confrontation, which boy, I know who likes conflict. I don't know anyone that likes conflict. Last minute changes without notice. Unfortunately, perhaps using fear and intimidation unintentionally, dismissing them, just kind of dictating what the terms are instead of collaborating, making sure that we need to empower them. Yeah, there's a lot of great input dominating. I said that one. Oh, not acknowledging or thanking folks, which is so important because we might think it and feel it, but if we don't actually show it or say it, don't walk the walk, of being disconnected.
Oh my gosh, those are all right on. Yes.
Yeah, being unapproachable. I mean, I think this is such a great exercise, Damian, because sometimes until we reflect on that, we might not even realize that that's how we came off, or in our busy day with, so many goals and objectives and services to provide, that can get lost. So I think this is super that everyone is giving so much great input, one-sided conversations. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, you guys were all right on. And then, yes, as Julie mentioned, I think sometimes we just, we get so focused on our day-to-day work that we also have to do, right? That we just kind of lose sight of some of these. And some of us hope that, those annual evaluations or evals that we give staff with that 2% increase or 5% increase will be enough to push them through the year. And the reality of it is that it's appreciated, but that's really not what makes people stay in workplaces or feel like they're working in a place that really values them. So
yeah, I have one more question for you, Damian. And I didn't catch up to it in the last slide, but there was a really great question about, would you expect answers to be different if it was a different department or industry, as far as kind of how to nail this work culture and how to lead with empathy? Do you expect that to be different from different levels of leadership or different departments or industries?
That is an excellent question. For the most part, I would say most industries, this approach really works, really looking at leading with empathy, addressing people's feelings. The one or two places I can see sometimes would change some of this, but only periodically, is things like the military and law enforcement, right? Where leadership really is about so much relying on other people's viewpoint, if you will, right? For example, if you're in the military, you don't have eyes on, the next block. You're strictly going off on the person that's in front, who does have the eyes of what's going on. And so in that case, it does become very autocratic, right? It's just you've got your sergeants and your top level military dictating what occurs from afar. So those are the two places I can think about right off the bat. Julie, do you have any other? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think we had a great comment that said, we're all still human, right? So I think no matter where we work or what level of management, there are those core values, right? And so, great comment, great point. I think for me, it does depend how leadership leads the organization, because that will set the tone, right, for everyone else. So, I've seen variations, but I think your comments are well taken. I think in the nonprofit world, there's a lot of commonality. So
Yeah,
that's
true.
helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I answered that question correctly, but
Yeah.
thanks for that.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and last question here, to help our people feel this way, to help our people feel humble, curious, compassionate, what do I need to do? So once again, we're looking at actions that you as the leader can take to ensure your people feel humble, curiosity, and compassion. What are some of those things?
Well, I have listen as part of the input. Be willing to step in to help, right, as needed. Create trust and validate their presence, even through the challenges. Empower people. Be sure to be humble, curious, and compassionate yourself. So lead that way, right?
Modeling our behavior.
Yeah, model it. Follow through and follow up. I love that. Be approachable. You want to really believe it, because then you can model it, right? Be present in body, mind, and spirit. And that way you can, really exhibit and practice being humble, curious, and compassionate. Love it. Treat people the way you want to be treated. One of those old adages. I love that. I always hear my parents in my head. I love that. Check in with them. Give them tasks that they're really excited to do. So match them with their skills. Find out what would make them jazzed, to learn or to do. Show grace. Involve them in the decision-making process, and whenever you can. And as we know, we can't always do that, but there's a great way to take that input in and validate them. Ask for their opinions. Learn what their goals are, and it's really important. So, treat people better than you'd like to be treated. Wonderful.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go somewhere, right? Leave it better than when you showed up. Make sure you leave it in good, and that means emotionally too, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Really
Absolutely.
great input.
Yeah, thank you. Those are all great things and skills that we need to just remember
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
implement and use in order to really help our teams feel humbleness, curiosity, and compassion. So, I think again, just, although these questions may seem basic, as Julie really highlighted, they just really start to help us be much more intentional about how we think about the cultures that we want to create. And the purpose of this handout is so that you do have this in front of you. I've heard of teams when I've done these in-depth trainings, leaders will actually post this emotions team sheet right on their cubicle, their desk, and they review it every time they're going to meet with somebody or their team members, because it just helps them, remind them, like, okay, if I want this person to feel humbleness, compassion, and curiosity, how am I going to interact with them today during this one-on-one meeting? How am I going to interact with my staff today if this is how I want them to feel? So it really just kind of keeps it alive and brings it to the forefront.
Right.
All right. So
I have one more thing, Damian. I just want to mention, because this is such great input and there's so much participation, which is awesome. Now, if we get to the end and you want to continue this conversation, please feel free to tap into HR services so that we can provide you, an ear or more resources to maybe help you if the issues seem bigger than we can cover in an hour. And then Damian's also going to be available. So just want to give you that in the back of your mind as we go through the rest of this session.
Great, thanks, Julie. All right, so now let's fill out the next part, the left-hand side of that sheet, or again, just jot it down on a piece of paper. So now you see some white cards in front of you, and I'd like you to select, same process, the top 3 that you believe don't create the culture you want. So what kind of things do you not want to, you want to be sure that I don't have a team or a work culture where people really feel embarrassed or overwhelmed or disheartened. What are those top 3? Whatever those top 3 are, keep them coming, and Julie will catch them in midair and try to consolidate.
Are you ready? Here we go.
All right.
Impatient, overwhelmed, rebellious. I have uncaring, impatient, incapable, closed, uncaring, and alone, overwhelmed, uncaring, and closed, impatient, uncaring, incapable. So we have some duplicates there. Rebellious, uncaring, impatient, embarrassed, uncaring, overwhelmed, disheartened, uncaring, overwhelmed, disheartened again, alone, overwhelmed. Boy, there's a lot of that, right? Disheartened, uncertain, overwhelmed, closed, incapable, alone, uncaring, overwhelmed, uncertain. And boy, that's like, there's a lot of duplication here. So that's great. Everybody's kind of on the same page with this. I'm really seeing,
Let's go with the top three. I've got check marks here all over the place, but let's go with jot down impatient, overwhelmed, and uncaring. So if those are the feelings we believe don't create the culture we want, we don't want people to feel impatient, overwhelmed, or that we don't care. Same process here. Let's go through and fill out the left-hand side of the emotions team sheet or jot it down. How are you going to know, again, what are you going to see or hear if people are feeling impatient, overwhelmed, or uncaring?
well, I also have just a comment on the rebellious, that it can really rock the boat of synergy when you're trying to make a shift in the culture. So I just want to toss that one in there too. And then let's see what folks have to say on this. Uncaring, take a lot of time off. If they're overwhelmed, right? May have loud and abrupt tone of voice, lack of communication. People are frazzled, right? You can see the stress and feel it. Lack of motivation, lack of teamwork, rude behavior, frustration showing maybe in their voice or their tone, overwhelmed, short fuse. The work product's poor, right? They're not going to do as good of a job. They're not going to feel good about it. Overwhelmed and not really able to communicate their frustrations. Passive aggressive. Well, there's a huge one, isn't it? Poor performance, shutting themselves off from others. Siloed. That we see that happen, don't we? Competitive versus collaborative. Maybe putting down others' work, right? Instead of holding them up and acknowledging them, just putting it down. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Yeah, you're right on. Exactly. All of those kind of things, are created when we don't, when we do make people feel impatient, overwhelmed, or uncaring. Those kind of emotions that we don't want to create or see, but yet clearly we're aware of them because we see them or hear them. Goes back to, once again, a lot of us just tend to tolerate these kind of things and we don't address the behaviors when we need to. And as a result, we end up dealing with those behaviors, all of you just so eloquently listed there. And so, getting down to the core that we need to really attend and address those feelings. And so, now I'd like to answer question number 3. What kind of things make people feel this way that you as leaders do, right? Again, it could be intentionally, it could be unintentionally. Some of us might intentionally ignore the issue, hope it goes away, right? Some of us are just so busy at work that we don't even think about what's going on in our teams because we're so busy with our own reports and goals and metrics that we have to meet. So what kind of things do we as leaders do that do make people feel this way? that do make them feel overwhelmed, impatient, uncaring?
So we have quite a bit already here, Damian, which is great. Also, previous to that, there was comment about gossip, which is huge, right? So, but what we do to make people feel this way is maybe not get back to them in a timely manner, or explain the goals, or what the priorities are. You might give them a task or something, but not really work with them, or look to see what's already on their priority list and make sure that you support it so they can do a good job. We might cause some, chronic stress by the way we're leading, talking at people instead of listening actively and talking with them, not taking that time for the collaboration, or maybe even ignoring the way they feel, just overlooking them, or poo-pooing it, right? Negative attitude, asking for too much and not, giving them realistic goals, which, sets them up for failure instead of success. Don't manage the workload properly. Be aware of burnout. Make sure you acknowledge it, and support time off and self-care. If you don't care, they're not going to care. And that's good, basic. It's true. It's so true. Not being supportive, or being disengaged, maybe being impatient ourselves, right? And if you don't provide an environment where they feel heard, that's an issue as well.
That's huge,
Yeah,
right?
excellent input.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. Again, those are all things you're going to see or hear if we do make people feel this way, again, intentionally or unintentionally. But it's so critically important that I think at the end of the day, we understand that as leaders, we lead people. So although we ultimately, a lot of us do have our own workloads that we have to do, we have to keep in mind that a bulk of your responsibility is to lead people, to lead others. And so we have to attend to these, to how people feel in the workplace. That is one of our critical components. And one that I, venture to say that if you don't address is going to create a tremendous amount of undue burden and stress on you, on top of, everything you're already handling. So last question here for this activity: to help our people manage or cope when they do feel this, what do you need to do? So what coping mechanisms can we give people when they do feel impatient, when they do feel overwhelmed, or when they do feel like we don't care? What can we do to help them manage or cope?
Excellent. Well, it says leaders need to be mindful of retaliatory behaviors too. We need to be really keep ourselves in check, right? Adjust things when they're not working. Be willing to adjust your approach and your style, right? And as we know, different staff react and do better with a different type of approach sometimes. So we have to be available to listen and reflect, encourage them to take things on, have them stretch themselves a little, but also be there to support them during that. Empathize and pay attention to their feelings.
Yes.
Be available. We're all so busy, and leadership is extremely busy. So being available and supportive, lend your ear, discuss and adjust or reconcile if there's, gaps. Look out for those gaps. Schedule one-on-ones and check-ins more often, touch tones, right? Set tangible goals with them. And help them sort through things. Sometimes staff are just like, I'm overwhelmed. Where do I start? What's the best? What do I need to prioritize? Or do I have the proper tools to be successful in what I'm doing? Really good input. Thank you all.
Thank you. Wow. Well, you guys are clearly all the experts. So thanks for sharing all that. Well. But yeah, and the key point there is that, the question doesn't say to make sure people don't feel this. And there's a critical reason why. And again, which is how I started the session, right? That we in leadership are in a tremendous position to influence how people feel. At the end of the day, we cannot control how a person feels. We don't have ultimate control over people's feelings, but we do have tremendous influence over how people feel. So these coping strategies are really important for us to sometimes, be aware of and share with our teams that, you know what, hey, if we're facing audits and it's all hands on deck, we are going to be overwhelmed for the next 3, 5 days, weeks, whatever the case is. But hey, come to me, let me know if you need a 5-minute break, 10-minute break to just take a walk. I'll step in, whatever the case is. But we need to really be aware of this, and how do we give these coping skills to our teams.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
a few others of you really mentioned the importance of flexing our leadership style, one-on-one meetings, which is a perfect plug for, the next webinar we'll be having next month, which is the secret to effective leadership, where we will dive into how do we as leaders then flex our leadership styles to meet the needs of our employees. Because yes, it does require us to change, not so much the employee, believe it or not. So we will address how important that is, as well as the one-on-ones and check-ins with individual team members, not just groups, but each one as well, which is really where you get to the heart of how do you help people manage and cope when they have certain feelings in the workplace.
Definitely.
All right, so with that, we're coming to a close here. So I would just love to hear, just based on today's session, based on what you've heard us share, the little bit of nuggets that we've thrown at you, what is something that you think you've realized, like, wow, one thing I need to change is this. Just type it into the question box. Let's just start with, or just answer number 1 for today for the sake of time. And as you start to go back to your workplace, maybe as soon as you get off of this call, just jot down your responses. What change you want to make, specific actions you need to take, what success would look like for you, and then what support would you need from either us, from Julie, from me, from your own leadership. Again, it's really about, how we turn things into action is really by reflecting on them and being intentional about actions we need to take and being clear on what success looks like. So Julie, do we have any vulnerable leaders in the room that are sharing with us a change they want to make?
We have really excellent leaders in the room that are willing to share with us. So thank you. Yes. We have my level of empathy and active listening to increase that, meet with staff more often. It's so hard. The day goes by so quick, but it's so key, even if it's a touch tone. I need to be more mindful and follow through, respond quickly and with clarity, and think about how I need to change, not only how my colleagues need to, right? When I'm addressing issues. Stop to listen and be aware that I need to pause, right? Take a pause and listen to what's going on with your staff, showing more grace and compassion, humbleness, create more opportunities for one-on-one and check-ins, including leadership team. Think about what emotional responses are my goals in the meeting. Yeah, beautiful. Continue to be an active listener, but it can always be worked on, right? Thank you.
Yep.
Take a step back. Take a step back. I like that. Absorb the duties and being a team player, and be patient in that process. Thank people, acknowledge them more often. Lots of comments about meeting more and, connecting with the teams more. There's a lot of duplicates there. Being more mindful of my influence on others' emotions. Like you said, we can't control how people feel, but we can be impactful. So how do we do that in a positive way? Work on my active listening, and not be so concerned with, my response, right? No change is inevitable, and the process is, helpful in growth and development. A lot of people are, they want to resist change, but it can be a great thing and a great opportunity. Well, I love this comment. Someone said, I know what I'm getting my team for a holiday gift, which is the book Dare to Lead. So that's wonderful. Glad to see that.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you all. Thank you
Yeah.
all so much for your input and your contribution today. As Julie mentioned, I think that, this really helps us to be much more engaging with you as well when you're participating. So thank you so much for that. And I leave you with this quote that I love from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And ultimately, that is the key to effective leadership, right? Is how people feel. And, as I shared with you, hopefully you'll be able to attend our next webinar on the 15th of November, where we'll dive into the secret to effective leadership and really looking at how, a lot of you already started with one-on-one, so that's awesome. We'll look at that, but then also just flexing our leadership style. How do we become much more flexible leaders, and why that's important to meet the needs of our employees? So with that, thank you, Julie. I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Damian. It was such a delight to work with you today. Thank you to all the attendees. Amazing input, which, as we said, it makes it so much more engaging and fun. Great topic. Looking forward to coming back on November 15th, as Damian said, and I hope you can join us. Let us know if you have any questions, and watch for that survey, right? You can request your credits or your certificate of attendance. I want to thank you, Damian. It's been such a pleasure and honor to be here with you today, and appreciate all that our attendees are doing out there in the community. So thank you for your work.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Hope to see you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great day.